I'm trying in my mind to figure out which injured Bucs player is more likely to go. Chris Godwin, coming off the ankle injury, or Tristan Wirfs, coming off the knee injury, or both. So it's A, B, or C. What do you think?
Is this most likely to come back, or who's the most important one to come back?
Well, I think those are two different questions. Obviously,
They are.
Yeah, the most important to come back, I don't think is it could be disputed, but I personally would believe that the most important person to come back would be Tristan Wirfs because one, the left tackle plays every down. The left tackle allows everybody else to go back to their original positions as far as Graham Barton goes and Ben Bredeson. You'd have one whole side of your line pretty much intact.
Well, we think because the Bucs today would not allow anyone to report on the line combinations.
That's true. They wouldn't allow us to report on the line combinations. However, let's just assume, for the argument's sake, that Wirfs is back, right? Where would they play him? At right tackle and keep Barton at left and have two bookend tackles? But then you'd still have
I think
guard
Wirfs,
spots open?
I think Wirfs goes to left tackle.
That's what I believe.
I think there's a chance Barton goes to right tackle.
I don't think he played right tackle in college, and left and right matters in this instance.
Like I said, I'm not saying I
think he'd be more apt because Wirfs, remember, began his NFL career at right tackle. Yes. It wasn't until 2 years ago or last year he moved to left tackle.
Yep.
So if you were going to do that, if you're going to keep one of them, the other one, Barton, out of tackle, I think you would flop it and let Wirfs play right and keep Barton at left. That's just my opinion.
But I want to protect Baker's blind side, and I want the best guy I've got out there.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I just don't know if Barton can play right.
I don't know if he can either. And I say this just saying I think there's a chance, not knowing if he can, just if you're really trying to put your 5 best players out there.
Well, you'd still have your 5 best players if you played center, if Barton played center.
Well, but so if
Charlie Heck then plays right tackle.
Heck plays right, and Bredeson moves back to left guard. If you put Barton at right tackle, then Heck's out.
Heck's gone. And
Bredeson's at center, and then you've got the 2 guards.
But you need 2 guards, and they were the problem last week.
Right.
They committed 4 holding penalties alone.
Yeah.
So I think you try, again, speculation. I think you try to get guys back in their OG positions as best you can, because it leaves you vulnerable with just 1 guard spot instead of 2. Like I said, the 3 others, Barton, Bredeson, and Tristan Wirfs are together back where they belong. Heck has played tackle. He seems to be a better right tackle than he was a left tackle. I mean, he was so bad at left tackle, they moved Barton out there. Okay. Yep. So if he's going to play tackle at all, it's going to be right tackle. So now he's also on the injury list, ironically enough. But if he can play, I think he plays right tackle. And then you got to decide on who your guard is. I don't know if that's Luke Haggard again. I have no idea. But that's the way I would go. And especially because, Philadelphia's defensive line is really tough on the interior in particular. So you're going to have to hold up inside by Baker's feet, et cetera. But that said, I think we both agree that if you could only choose one, Godwin or Wirfs, I think I would choose Wirfs.
I would too, but with Mike Evans now being out, it's not a slam dunk argument of that.
No, it's not.
If Evans was playing opposite Ibuka, you're like, of course it's Wirfs.
Yeah, no, it's not, because now if you just move everybody up, Sterling Shepard becomes your wide receiver 2. And he clearly is not that at this stage of his career.
Well, and is Ibuka really a wide receiver 1 at this point in his career?
No, but you're going to have to hope. He's going to draw the double teams. He's going to be playing the Mike Evans role, I would suppose.
We're going to learn a lot from Ibuka now. And look, he's been fantastic, and he's going to grow into a great receiver in this league. But he's benefiting from Mike Evans being on the opposite side of that.
Of course, absolutely, he is.
Much like Godwin has for years in that. And Mike benefits from them too, because the better Godwin or Ibuka or whoever's opposite him does, it frees up Mike some too. So, I mean, you need to have more than one receiver, much like you need to have more than one running back. in this league now. You need 2 or 3 really good receivers, and then you need
Yeah.
some other pieces after that.
Yeah.
So Godwin's return, if he comes back this week, is very important because you've got Ibuka and Shepard and then a bunch of other guys. I mean, Miller and Tez Johnson and Cameron
Tez
Johnson.
is going to get a chance. Cameron
Yeah.
might get a chance. Yeah.
But I mean, does that scare you against Philly?
I mean, does it scare Philly? Probably not.
No, that's what I'm saying. But with Godwin back, it helps a lot.
Yeah, and even though he may come back and play his his usual slot receiver role, that moves a Buka outside to a new position. But it also, I think you got to be aware of the fact that Godwin playing isn't the same as Godwin playing most of the snaps. Like I truly believe that if and when he does play, he's not going to play 45, 50 snaps. It's going to be very, in a series, you may see him come in and out, maybe 1 out of every 3, maybe sometimes 2 out of 3, but it sure as hell won't be, the normal amount because he just hasn't had that much camp. He hadn't had that much training in. He's got to get over the mental hurdle. The last time this happened when he tore 3 knee ligaments and they played at Dallas and he probably came out a little too soon, but he started the season opener. They literally ran the first play as a quick screen to him so he could get tackled to get that mental block over with. They wound up playing the game and he hurt his hamstring because he hadn't been running that much. He hadn't been in training camp that long. Same thing now. I mean, I know he's been practicing. This is his second week, third week of practicing, maybe. I guess it's his third. But that doesn't mean he's been going full speed running routes and all that stuff. Now, Todd Bowles, because we're not allowed to watch, but Todd Bowles told us that he looked good out there doing that sort of stuff. So I guess you have to take him at his word. But I just seem to recall, John Romano sat down with Tristan Wirfs a few weeks ago. We were doing our special section or something. There's some reason why he sat down with him. And that's when he got into discussion about his leg and, what happened and stuff like that. But Wirfs seemed fairly adamant at that time that it would be really ambitious to think he would come back before like October. He just didn't seem like that was a timetable that he could keep. Now, we've seen him out there practicing or at least preparing to practice. So I think if you're out there, you're in play. But I don't think we ever find out until Sunday because I think what Bowles will do, because he says, well, Saturday and even Sunday are really important days. So what you're saying is, you're going to go through the whole week on Friday. We're going to talk to him on Saturday at noon, 12:15. And he's going to say, well, they're both questionable. We're going to see how they do tomorrow at the walkthrough. Then we'll probably test them right before the game, and it'll be a game time decision because Todd doesn't like to give any ammunition to anybody, anytime, anywhere. So until you go or turn on the TV and you see who's actually in the lineup, you're not going to know. I would say this. I think they're both trending to play. I think both of them are on the path to play this game. I don't think Wirfs feels like he's probably close to 100%. And there's probably some concern about that if I were him, because the worst thing you can do really is put a guy out there and he's not ready to play a full game. And then, he plays and he either re-injures it or has a setback of some kind. And now you lose him for another 2 or 3 weeks. It's you're not just trying to beat Philadelphia. You're trying to beat Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Detroit, right? Like this is a gauntlet of games here. So are you going to win them all? That'd be nice. Could you go 2-2 over the next 4? That'd be more realistic and okay. But you certainly don't want to, put somebody out and get them hurt right away. And then now they're not only do you lose to Philly or lose them in the Philly game, but then you lose them for the next 3 weeks as well. So I think that's what they're trying to avoid. And I really don't have a feel for it, to be honest. I mean, rough guess, they probably both play. If one or the other, if I had to pick one, I think you'd prefer Tristan Wirfs, but I think it would be more likely Godwin because Godwin's had, since last October, right? I mean, Tristan just had this surgery sometime in July, and he's got to play like I said, he's playing every down. You can manage Godwin's reps. You can't take the left tackle in and out during the game. So, but it sure feels like, and there's nothing to really base anything other than there's just that a feeling is, it sure feels like they're both going to come back. And that's what I expect. Doesn't mean I'm right. Things change day to day. Somebody could wake up tomorrow and say, "Wow, I'm really sore from what I did in practice," and I can't go. We'll see. There were some other surprises on that practice sheet, though, man, with Baker Mayfield popping up with a right bicep. Like, wow, it's crazy.
Is that just a veteran move there?
I don't know.
Get out of
could
practice.
Be.
I'm kind of sore. It's been a rough few weeks. Like, let me take a day off. Nice
It
veteran
could
move.
be. I mean, it definitely could be. We saw him out there kind of warming up, but I mean, right bicep. That we used to call just that. He's got a sore arm. He's got a sore arm from throwing. So maybe it's something like that. You'd have to, if Baker's anything less than doubtful or doesn't practice, I can assure you he's playing. He got up on the podium like he always does every Wednesday and talked to the media. And I don't know that wouldn't necessarily be the case if they thought that there was a chance he was out. So, Baker's a gamer. It's a huge game. Tom Brady's going to be in the house. I mean, that's how big the game is. So
Brady is doing the game.
That's what I understand. Yeah.
All right.
According to Fox's own Greg Allman.
LFG.
I know, right? And Greg's job will be to cover Brady. It's really funny. Like Fox just promotes him so much. But by the way, not for nothing. I don't have this.
When you spend $37.5 million a year, of course you're going to promote him.
Well, yeah, you got to use your own platforms to do that. I don't have the statement in front of me, and I'm on record as saying I think Tom is terrific. Right, Tom, terrific. He's the GOAT. The 3 years he played here was like Haley's comment. I've said this. I don't even think we still realize what actually just happened to us, but it transformed Tampa Bay. So I look forward to seeing him in the press box as I did 3 times last year, and he was very polite and talked, and not just the play, but actually looked you in the eye and remembered you and all that stuff. But there was a statement that he gave. I don't know that he released this or he just told somebody this, but like there's all this controversy about him, on the headset at the Raiders during the games, and then going and covering teams that the Raiders are playing. And man, he let out a statement that basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, don't ever question my integrity when it comes to football. Like, screw all you people if you think I'm going to do anything to dishonor this game, And I thought, well, okay, but you didn't have to get on that horse, did you? I mean,
like, do I think he's going in there going, I'm doing this so I can get intel to take back to the Raiders? No. But as a student of the game, and if you're talking to coordinators, they're telling you things, they're doing this, are those things you can, wow, that's a good, and it's not necessarily like I went in thinking this, but I've changed the way I think about this or this, and then you start talking to Chip Kelly or Pete Carroll or whatever, like, could you take some of that stuff back? Absolutely. Like, do I think that's why he's going in there and doing it? No. I think $37.5 million, and I think he does respect the game. Like, I don't question that, but even if I give you an idea that turns into something that could end up hurting my team down the road, like, why would I do that? Why would I tell you something? Why would I let you in?
I think there is, some distrust among the league, or it wouldn't have been brought up, whether that's owners or whoever. And the statement it really is sort of accusatory on his part, but he says in his Do Your Job newsletter, he called anyone that thinks he is taking advantage of his role as an announcer, quote, paranoid and distrustful. And he said the following: I love football. At its core, it's a game of principles. And with all the success it has given me, I feel I have a moral and ethical duty to the sport, which is why the point where my roles in it intersect is not actually a point of conflict, despite what the paranoid and distrustful might believe. Rather, it's a place from which my ethical duty emerges to grow, evolve, and improve the game that has given me everything.
Well, I remember him, respecting it so much he cooperated with the NFL in the investigation of Deflategate, right?
Well, I was just going to say, like,
What?
yeah, yeah. See, I was just going to say the problem that Tom has here is just that, right? Like, no matter what you think his role was, he was suspended 4 games for that. Okay, and there was a thing called Spygate where his team, at least, was penalized for filming defensive signals. So this notion that him and or the organizations that he played for wouldn't do everything they could to try to win is sort of poppycock. Like that's what he's always been about, is finding the edge. So it might be around the margins or whatever. And look, I'm I think the coaches and players in this league are smart enough to know what not to say to Tom Brady. How not to give away trade secrets. Okay, and in as much as he's not allowed to go to practices and stuff like that, I don't think he's going to glean a lot about personnel just by viewing them, because he can't until he gets the game tape. But he knows how to look at tape. He can make his own decisions on players. But do I think that if something came across him that could be useful down the road in any capacity toward, for the Raiders' competitive edge, would he do it? Would he use it? Hell yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and frankly, I don't think that's necessarily reserved for him. He just happens to be in this role right now. And that's what's so confusing, or so maybe troubling to a few people, is that we've never had, an announcer that was currently an active owner,
Mm-hmm.
that was doing this 2 jobs that kind of intersect. But I mean, boy, that's getting on your high horse and saying, how dare you question, my integrity. And I get that too. you know I think he does respect the game. But again, you played for the Patriots, right? You were involved in things, rightly or wrongly, that you got suspended for, that the commissioner and others deemed that you benefited from. So it is what it is. But again, going back to the first part, who's telling Tom Brady stuff that he can use, right, for the Raiders' competitive advantage? Nobody.
Like I said a week or two ago, if I was
Yeah,
in a meeting with Tom Brady and I was with the other team, I'd be telling him everything I'm not doing,
exactly.
except telling him that's what we're doing in the game
That's
tomorrow.
what
Like
we're
I'd make
really.
him look bad on the air. I'd be because
Yeah.
when Troy Aikman goes, look for them to run the counter here.
Yeah.
It's because they've talked to the coaches and say we like this play on 3rd down. We like to.
Sure.
They get those insights. I'd be telling them everything the wrong,
Yeah.
everything the exact opposite.
Yeah. Well, counterintelligence, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you could actually make your team and yourself more vulnerable that way by being in that role. I don't know. I still fall on the side of it's much to do about nothing, but it's at least concerning enough for owners or somebody to point it out, that like, hey, what would that, and then go on from there. But anyway, he felt he needed to step out. So I actually look, my interaction with Tom, I don't think there's been for a guy that has much celebrity and superstardom and accomplishment that he had by the time he got to Tampa. We went through it with COVID. We didn't get to meet him per se, and then we did. And even to this day, he couldn't be more polite. I think his parents did an unbelievable job. Like, he is present. He is, absolutely, committed to whatever conversation he's having. And I think most people that are around him really like him. I did, and there's no disputing what he did for this organization. So he'll always should be celebrated here in particular. But he's one competitive cuss. He just is, man. Like, the dude, and I think that's why he's in ownership. He could take his 38.5 million a year and still be around football. But for Tom, I don't think that was ever going to be enough, because he needs to belong to a team. He's belonged to a team his whole life, and he needs to compete. And if he can't compete as a player, then he's going to want to compete in some other fashion. And I guess in this case, it would be as an owner, but competing is the thing. That's the thing, right? Like that's the drug. Right now, that's the itch he can't scratch as a broadcaster. If all he does is broadcasting, who's he competing against? Other networks? Joe Buck, Troy Aikman. Who's he competing against? It's just not the same. I don't know how I got into this discussion with Tom Brady, but we did. So anyway, but yeah, Bucs will continue their practice, and we'll probably have a little more information on Thursday. We'll have a chance, I think, to talk to Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs on Thursday, so we'll see what they have to say about where they're at physically, mentally, and otherwise. But look, they need them to play because this is a big game, and the Bucs have had the Eagles' number a little bit as of late. I think the Eagles are definitely a handful on defense. Offensively, they've been kind of hit and miss, especially with their receivers. Jalen Hurts, up until last week, really hadn't done a lot in the passing game. Saquon Barkley hasn't been dynamic like he was a year ago yet, but they're 3-0. They're 3-0 the way the Bucs are 3-0, and that's really all that matters. And it's the first of a gauntlet of games. Like I said, win, lose, or draw in this one, man. You've got to play some tough games, across the country to Seattle, then back home against the 49ers. They'll probably have, I would think Brock Purdy will be playing by then. And then, Detroit, we saw what they did. That's still a very formidable team and really tough coach and all those things. So the other thing that came out was that, I guess Todd Bowles, being a proponent of the Tush Push, he doesn't really want to ban it. He thinks you should just, figure out a way to stop it. But and who knows? They probably had more success against that than a lot of teams. That's for sure. But Desmond Watson is not going to be active. That's been ruled out. He is helping them on a scout squad, kind of simulate parts of the Eagles defensive line. But that was his first practice on Wednesday. And when I say first practice, remember, he didn't get to do anything during training camp or mini camp or any of those things after they signed him. And now he's back on the practice squad. And so he's already kind of paying it off. But he's, for whatever reason, I personally, I don't know that you're asking a guy too much because his number one redeeming quality is his size and strength. And at minimum, you would want to use him on short yardage situations. And in particular, against an Eagles team that could run this play 4 or 5 times, including a bunch of times on the goal line where they score. So I don't know why, Bowles and everybody thinks it's just totally unrealistic that you consider him playing this week, but they've ruled him out, that he's not going to play. He's not ready to play. And to that point, they do have other players that are, ready to go, that have been on the practice squad and can be activated. And those guys are all, 335 pounds anyway, and ready to play football. So it's not like they don't have an answer, but we will not see Des Watson this week anyway. Hey, we'll talk about the Rays here in just a second, but first, get on down to Breitling Boutique, folks. What have you been waiting for? You have to go see this beautiful, beautiful Swiss watchmaker. The Breitling Company's been in business for over 140 years. They've been at International Plaza Mall with their boutique for the last 5+ years now. When you go there, the first thing you're going to love is the customer service. Spend some time. Have a drink. They're going to tell you about their beautiful watches, the men's watches, the Navitimers, the Chronomats that they are known for. They also have women's watches. These are sports watches. They're incredibly durable, and they come with an array of different colored wristbands that she will absolutely love. And while supplies last, and it's been probably a few weeks since I've been down there, but they have 32 different team watches for the NFL because they're celebrating the NFL's 140th anniversary. 104th year anniversary, not 104th year anniversary. Wow, that'd go back always. With 32 different team watches they have on the face of these Chronomat watches, the team colors, the logo, they're spectacular. Go to TampaBay.com. You can see the Bucs team watch. I saw it myself. They did have one in the window not long ago. So they're going fast. Go on down there. Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Please, please When you get there, let them know that you heard about all of this on Sports Day Tampa Bay. So the Rays had a good night. I saw where they tossed like 6 shutout innings and
6 no-hit innings.
No-hit innings. Wow.
Granted, it was a combination. Boz pitched, I think, 4. Uceda pitched 1.
Wow.
Clevenger pitched 1, and then Jax gave up a hit in the 7th. But the Rays win. They can still finish 81-81 if they win out.
That would be one hell of an accomplishment considering where they've come from.
Yep, and they gained another game on staying ahead of the Orioles for last place. So I think they're 3 games up on them.
Yeah. Those are 2 things that are goals. They're small goals, but I think they're important, is to not finish in last place. And, of course, if you could, to finish 500 would certainly not suck either. Still, we talked about John Romano's column, I think, saying that it was an extraordinarily,
Actually, we haven't talked about that yet.
Oh, we didn't? No, well, let me bring this up. That must have been on another show that I did.
No, we talked about it before the show yesterday. We just never got to it on the show.
Oh, okay. So Romano wrote this column.
Our pre-production meetings, actually, we usually kill our best content then. And then.
I know. We should just record those, and then we'd have the podcast done. So John Romano wrote this column and said that analytically, at least, it was how disappointing. He said it was historically disappointing. And I was like, wow, historically disappointing. And basically the crux of his argument was that the Rays had it's higher now, but had a run differential of plus 49. And with that said run differential, typically you win way more than you lose, right? Like over 500 and actually in some cases, closer to 90 games. And that with that run differential, you should not be where the Rays were, and that is good data. I don't dispute, what he's saying. I think, that they obviously had one spectacular month or so. And we talked about it here that, and the run differential was 49 prior to, it was a plus 49.
Now
he said of all the teams, of all the teams with similar run differential in baseball's expansion era, there have been 71 teams with run differential between 45 and 55 since 1961. 96% of them had winning records, right? So the Rays are the outlier. I will say this about that. Here's what I think, as Peter King would say, because remember, this is a team that was a half game off the division lead and had a 5.5 game cushion in the wild card standings at the end of June. All right. But what I would say to you is a couple things. The Rays did this to themselves.
Yep.
Inadvertently or advertently, but they did it to themselves. And part of it they couldn't really do much about, and that's the natural disaster known as Hurricane Milton that ripped their trop apart and forced them into a ballpark that, quite frankly, is the exact dimensions of Yankee Stadium, and they are not built to play baseball at Yankee Stadium. They're a team that relies on speed and pitching, and balls were flying out of there right and left. They couldn't use their speed in the outfield. It just negated some of their strengths. So it was an odd fit for the ballpark, obviously, but more than that, because of the threat or fear of rainouts and or heat in the summertime, because they were playing outdoor baseball in Florida, they agreed and or probably pushed for flipping the schedule. Flipping the schedule to where they had a bunch of front-loaded home games and then just a tremendous inequity of road games at the end of the season or towards the end of the season. And I just go back to this period where they played 19 of 22 on the road, and the 3 at home were against the Dodgers, and they lost that series, I believe. Their record during those 22 games was 8-14. And I don't think you can quantify and look, they're staying in 6-star hotels and traveling in chartered airplanes. So it's not tough duty necessarily, but it is when you're gone that long. And then typically by the time you get home from a slog like that, you're exhausted. I mean, it's kind of like, and Tom Jones brought this up today, it's kind of like hockey, it's almost predictable when a hockey team's been on a West Coast trip or they've been gone for a while, that their first game back at home, they're not going to win. They're going to be bad.
They
They're not going to play well.
almost never do.
Yeah. And it's because they're tired.
Mhm.
They're tired from the road. They may be home, but they're not quite ready to, re-engage and shift gears after just one day off.
Well, and they're tired, and they're also then having to re-catch up with their family and their kids and their wife.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
just, it's not necessarily I came home and slept and rested all day. It's, now I got to take the kids to here and this and the wife or the girlfriend or,
First
whatever.
thing my wife would do, my first wife in particular, is that when I would come home from a long road trip or whatever, and my son Wes was a baby, she'd be at the door and she'd go, "Here, take him." And I was like, "Okay, where are you going?" "I don't care. Take him." And then that was it. And so I did. And there's a lot of honeydews. There's a lot of things you got to reconnect and all that, and you don't get to rest, and you're dead ass tired from traveling. And 19 to 22, really? Whoever, I mean, I'm still trying to. They were a team, and probably because of it, not in spite of it, but they were a team that one of the few that didn't have a rain out.
I think the only one outside California that doesn't have a dome.
Yeah.
The only team not to have a rainout.
Now, a lot of that was because they weren't home during rainy season, but a lot of it is just, sort of luck too. But they didn't really even have that many rain delays, to be honest. I think like a total of 10 or 11 hours for the whole season. So, they kind of did it to themselves, quite frankly. I think they asked this way too much of this baseball team. There was enough adjustment. The trop blew down. You had to be outside. Ballpark that's not suited for your team, or is not suited for the way your team is built. The heat. The other thing is, I don't think they were ready for how hot it was going to be. I think it wore them down. I do. I think you got soft playing in the air conditioning. I mean, the fans did. They, hell, there was never a problem going into the trop. I loved the trop because I knew two things. One, they were going to play no matter what the weather was like outside. And two, I was going to be incredibly comfortable, no matter what the weather was outside. Were there times that I wish they could have been outdoors? Yeah, like in October, or April maybe, but not many days. I'm telling you, Steve, I went out. We were at practice today for the Bucs. Practice, not the game.
We're talking about practice.
I'm talking about practice, man, not the game I love. We had practice, man. I know it's important. I do. We're at practice today. I think the air temp got up to maybe 92. Freaking 92. We're at September 24th. We're past the, do you remember? We're past the 21st of September. We're September 24th. And it was literally as hot a day as I can remember at One Buck Place this year. And I did training camp. So, I mean, it wears on you, and it's gonna wear on that football team too. And I think it's kind of funny that Nick Sirianni thinks bringing the Eagles down for an extra day is going to help them acclimate to this stuff. Brother, I've lived here my whole life. Nick, I can tell you, save your time, your jet, and your hotel bill. Because one day is going to do, if you put these guys out there, is further dehydrate them, and you'll lose the little bit of physiological advantage you might have coming from Philly. Although I know it's hot there too, but not as hot. It's not like it is here. So that's a dumb move. They're just trying to think of anything they could do to reverse their fortunes against the Bucs. I get it, but that's not it. Okay, whatever it is, that's not it.
I told you I thought it was just because they have a bunch of players from Georgia on the roster. So any other days they can stay in a hotel and not have them roaming at home, it's better.
Oh man, the Bulldogs. That's no joke, man. It's funny, but it's not, because those guys, they've hurt people and themselves, and it could potentially hurt others. But maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know. I know that it's I mean, it'd be like, hey, you got a really important match this weekend. Let's all go to the beach today, and just get burned. They used to tell us as kids, if we had some big tournament coming up, like, you can't go to the beach. Now, I remember my dad coaching, telling his players who were teenagers, it's like in one ear and out the other. It's like, now, fellas, don't be going to the beach this weekend with your girlfriends. We got an important doubleheader on Sunday or some stuff. And I was like, yeah, they're listening to you. And the guys would show up to be beat red from sunburn. But no, down here it's a thing. I mean, it's a thing. And, so I don't know. We're always on the wrong side of the weather, or so it seems. All right, so we'll probably get to some mailbags tomorrow. We'll also preview the Bucs against the Eagles, have more of an update on Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin and anybody else who, like Baker Mayfield, who may or may not be nicked up. Get your mailbag questions in anytime you want to. You can do that by sending them to us at SportsDayTB. You can reach me at NFL Stroud, or my email address is rstroud@tampabay.com. Before we get out of here, I think we had somebody ask a question about where to find the Bucs Super Bowl book.
Yeah, Buckman was asking for the address to order the 50th anniversary book that there's a special 25% off code for. So you can get the book Fire the Cannons, 50 Years of Tampa Bay Buccaneers Football at bucs50.pictorialbook.com. That's bucs50, bucs50.pictorialbook.com. Get 25% off now through, I believe, early October. So you want to order that soon. Perfect for the holidays.
It is. It should read 50 years of Buccaneer footballs and 5 weeks of my vacation, but that's another story.
All your comp time is used on that?
Yeah. Comp time. That's what they call it, huh? Anyway, it is a good book. I can attest. I wrote a lot of it, and so did Joey Knight and John Romano, and the pictures are phenomenal. They go all the way back to 1976. We have archived these things, baby. We have ID'd all this stuff. It is a collector's item, and they're selling pretty well. I think we're well over 2,000 advanced copies right now, which is a good start. And it's a great holiday gift and all those things. So don't get left behind, because here's the secret sauce here. They're only going to print so many. So if you're thinking you're going to order 100 for your friends, don't wait, because when they're gone, they're gone. I don't know that there'll be a second and third printing, and I'm pretty sure they're not coming out in paperback. So make sure you get in line, get your order now. Thanks again, always, for listening. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.